always like to interject this particular slide because a lot of people are unaware of an organization. Now, I'm going to talk about this organization, which is in the state of Michigan. And I used to live and work in Michigan for about 35 years. They have an organization called Health Recovery Professional Program, or basically known as HPRP. And I believe that every state in this country have a comparable organization. In the state of Michigan, HPRP serve as a liaison between the state licensing board and the licensee. And what happens is that if a healthcare professional person has been cited for some type of impairment, they have to be evaluated by an organization called HPRP. And HPRP determines if the licensee is safe to practice, because the whole premise is that the state of Michigan, as well as other states, want to make sure that those of us who are licensed, that we are not a threat to the public. And so so the state of Michigan established this particular entity in 1994, and it's basically designed to monitor those healthcare professionals who have been deemed unsafe to practice because of their SUD disorder, the psychological disorder, or some other type of disorder, because the state of Michigan licensing board is really interested in making sure that we as providers, we as licensed providers, are keeping the public safe. Now, part of this here ties into the code of ethics, because we may be doing some things that the state of Michigan, for example, could be deemed as something unsafe. What I'm really am surprised with is, at least with the people in Michigan, I was really surprised that most licensed professionals, and we're talking about licensed counselors, licensed social workers, licensed psychologists, I was really surprised that very few licensees was aware of something like this. And what I'm trying to educate my students, my graduate counseling students, is that once you become a licensed professional, you do have to be very careful how you are presenting yourself to the public. Now, we're just not talking about presenting yourself on a professional level, but we also talk about how you present yourself to the public in general. Because I am a panel provider for this organization called HPRP. And so I have had the experience of doing an evaluation on somebody who have been deemed to be unsafe to practice. For an example, recently I had to do an evaluation on a licensed practical nurse who was deemed to be a threat because that person accumulated a driving while under the influence charge. And so I had to evaluate that individual rather, to determine if they needed to be monitored by HPRP. And as it turned out, my findings were that this person needed to be monitored because this person had continued to consume alcohol even during the evaluation process. And so it's important that everybody in this training, it's important that you become familiar with your state version of HPRP, because we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we are violating some type of code of ethics, or we may be seen as a threat to the public. And again, when I talk to people in Michigan, and I ask the question, how many of you guys have heard of HPRP? Literally about 1% of the population that I've spoken to recognize this, and I don't know if graduate level programs are even presenting this type of information to students, but I think it's important that everyone knows about it. Now, again, let me just interject a question here. Out of curiosity, those of y'all who are on this call, how familiar are you, or have you even heard of something similar to this in the state that you're in? Are you aware that we as licensed professionals, that we have been held at the highest accountability? And are you also aware that if we are deemed to be impaired, we're going to be called on the carpet, where we may have to be evaluated for, make sure we're safe to practice. So have you all heard of this organization or a similar organization in your state? And you can put it in your chat box. So it's a mixture. Some people have heard of it, some people have not. Uh, One person in Alaska said they never heard of it. One person said it's handled by a behavior board. So it seems like it's a mixture of those of y'all who have heard about it and those of y'all who have not. If you have not heard about this particular entity in your particular state, I would encourage you to really Google something like this because it's important that you understand the consequences if we as licensee handle we don't take our license seriously.